Hi and welcome back to Cheeky Crypto. My name is Nick, and today guys we're going to be jumping down into the world of XRP, taking a look at what's occurred and what's going to happen potentially next for this altcoin. As I get into it, if you find it useful and informative, smash the like button. I do appreciate that. If you are new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. Let's jump right down into this one though and take a look at XRP. So here we have XRP paired up with USDT on the spot exchange, and 𝗕𝗀𝗀𝗃 is our data source, 1 hour chart. And as I suspected yesterday, we did get that breakdown before a move upwards. This was basically just because it was coiling up in a way that didn't look strong. So we did see that break to the downside here, and then we started to move on up. Now, the previous support trend line has turned into a resistance trend line. Even though we did actually break up higher than the previous local highs here, it's now possible that this actually continues to break down. So we were looking for a break up, and now I'm not so confident on that one at this point in time. So structures have changed ever so slightly. Let's jump into this, right? So at least we were right about the move to the downside and the move to the upside, and the minimum expectations have been met. Okay, if I draw this line right here, minimum expectation would have been 48.548, and yeah, we kind of hit that level. You can also see this area of resistance that I was talking about at 48.734, and that's exactly where we landed, right between the two of those levels. You can kind of see that wick right inside there, and then getting smacked all the way back down again. You can see that the fair value gap, this bigger one here, is an area that we will be looking at moving up to. I just don't think it's going to happen today. Could be wrong on that, of course. I'd love to be wrong on that, but I think the most obvious thing here is probably a move to the downside before we actually get that move to the upside. So now a big reset after seeing this move to the downside here, which is complete, by the way, as a 5-wave structure. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. We can see that that's marked off as complete. We can now consider finishing this next, or talking about this next move upwards. Now, for the most part, it looks like we've pretty much done with this move up, even though it didn't reach its expectation at about 48.913. Minimum expectations, of course, were already met. So for the most part, I'm going to mark that as done because I'm not seeing a need for us to kind of push up higher at this point in time. Instead, we've got two fair value gaps down here. These are going to be of interest to me because I do think they are likely to be where we end up going next. So let's jump on over into 𝗕𝗀𝗃𝗃. We'll go over to 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃's trading pair for XRP on spot. So for those people who, as you can see, this is my expectation, right? As you can kind of see from yesterday, we were expecting a breakdown and then a break out to the upside, but that's changed a little bit. Yeah, 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃. So for those who are looking for an exchange that sells XRP with KYC that is optional, then why not check out the affiliate link for 𝗕𝗃𝗃 in the description down below. It's my go-to platform at the moment. There are a few caveats with the KYC that can sometimes trick people and trip people up a little bit. I don't use KYC to onboard fiat. If I'm going to onboard fiat, I would have to KYC for the obvious reasons you need to know your customer. But for when you're just depositing USDT, USDC, or stable coins or altcoins to the platform, then there's no KYC actually required. You can just use it as if you were using a DEX, for example, where, well, there's similarly deposit here, and you would essentially just convert, trade spot, trade leverage, etc. It gets more complicated if you're looking to onboard fiat. So again, you know, do what's best for you guys, but I use 𝗕𝗃𝗃 as my go-to platform. I trust them. I've spoken to them. I've met the team, met the CEO in person, and you know, I do trust them a lot more than I trust many of the others out in the space. So you know, well worth checking it out. Like I said, affiliate link is in the description below. If you're looking for an exchange that sells XRP and KYC is optional, onboarding fiat isn't exactly a necessity to you, then I think 𝗕𝗃𝗃𝗃 is the way to go, personally. So let's talk about this, right? So we can see the fair value gap sits there at 48.162 to 49.982, and this is created from imbalances in these order books over this side, right? So basically here there's so much selling pressure, not enough buying pressure, that price has to go from the high side to the low side to fill those sell orders, and as such you leave the gap behind. The gap is a representation of illiquidity within the market, and price action loves to go back to where liquidity was not a guarantee, but something that we often see in the space. Price likes to go back and fill into into that area. Now, obviously, we left two fair value gaps on the way up. Okay, so we left this one right here. This one's at 46.597 and 46.871. And then we left this one as well right here. Okay, so there's kind of three fair value gaps here, and unfortunately in opposite directions. Okay, so we've got two fair value gaps that were created when the price was pushing up higher, and then we've got one big fair value gap that was created when price was pushing to the downside. Okay, so this tells me that because we kind of are at an end of a structure here, okay, we're retesting this trend line. Let me actually pull this trend line up here. Right, if I pull that to, it's a little bit weak actually, let me just adjust that right about here. So we can see that we're testing that trend line. Okay, was support, broken, now resistance, and we've got two fair value gaps down at the bottom here. We're also overbought on the time frames. Let's just bring those back up here on the 1 hour and 4 hour. That basically allow us to think that we are likely to see this move down to these fair value gaps. Okay, so my expectations are that we come down, we grab these fair value gaps on the lower side, so i.e. a move down towards 46.597, and then we break up again into this range here. A lot of liquidity grabbing essentially, because essentially what you'll see is some long positions that got liquidated on the breakdown, and then some long positions that got liquidated on the way up, right? So although we were right yesterday with our moves here, I was expecting more of a move to the upside. So we broke down as expected, and then we broke up and we set a new local high, but it's a really weak one. So just change our analysis ever so slightly, but the expectation now has to be that we move down, and then from here we have another attempt at breaking up, because we will eventually fill this fair value gap. It might just take a little bit of time before we get there. Okay, so that's going to be the expectation. I'll leave that there for now, and we'll see how that plays out. Let's jump back down into the Elliott Wave theory side of the business here. So let's take a look, right? So as you can kind of see, we have this move to the downside, and again it looks more like a WXYXZ now from that move. So we can go ahead, WXY, that's the wrong one, this one here, W, X, Y, X, and Z, and then we break up here. Now we know that we've broken higher than the X wave, so that's all good, nothing too much to concern there, and this move to the upside that we see is kind of potentially done here. We look for a small corrective action, bringing us down more towards this area of consolidation, which for the most part I think the buyers are going to be right in here. Let me actually see if I can snap that. There we go. Right in this range at 46.10 to 46.73. That there would actually then fill off those fair value gaps. Then all in all, you'd actually have this as a bigger break to the upside like so. And then I think you grab that larger fair value gap that is on that side of that from over here on the 14th of June at 2100 hours UTC +1. So for the most part, that's kind of where you would expect it to go, in my opinion, right? We look for that breakdown, then we look for that move upwards, and we grab that. This will basically allow for whales and big players in the space to grab the liquidity and then take it in the opposite direction when people are feeling a little bit on the bearish side of things. So for the most part, that's kind of where my expectations are here for XRP for the kind of the smaller time frames. Jumping over into the daily, we are actually in a really strong position, but we're not quite ready for the moves to the upside to occur. Now here we can see that we ended up with this expansion occurring. Let me go ahead and see if I can draw this on. Again, not the best on that wick. There we go, that one there. And then I don't know how that's gonna, yeah, that ties in quite nicely there. So we ended up with this expansion that is occurring, and this is an interesting pattern because we've got a couple of options here. I think the way that this is going to play is that we're going to potentially come up and test that local high at around 58 cents. Okay, I'm thinking that's likely what's going to happen here is we're going to kind of come down, test that again, and then come up into that higher range. Okay, that's kind of what I'm thinking. Now, it'll be interesting to kind of see how that plays out, and this could be nothing, it could be something, but for the most part, on the daily time frame, we're nice and oversold. We're looking for a big swing in the market. We're just not ready just yet, but it does look like we are going to be getting there over the next few days and weeks. But yeah, for the most part, it's looking pretty reasonably strong on the daily time frame. The weekly, not so much. Monthly, not so much. There is bigger moves to the downside, but we are looking first at potentially retesting some of those highs before we actually get those bigger macro movements back to the downside. All in all, taking a look at our structures, we are in a ranging market, and we've been stuck in this ranging market for quite some time. So yeah, it's not terribly too much going on, and it hasn't been really since March. So for the most part, it's actually held up incredibly well. But yeah, expect some volatility essentially, as kind of where my point is on the macro level. I'm going to leave the video right there though, guys. If you have found it useful and informative, smash the like button. I do appreciate that. If you're new to the channel, then why not go ahead and subscribe, tap the bell, select all the notifications, and in doing so, you will be kept up to date with everything that we do here at Cheeky Crypto. If you haven't yet joined us in Discord, check it out. Link in the description below. Until the next one though, guys, have a fantastic day.
We are not financial advisors. None of what we have communicated verbally or in writing here should be considered as financial advice. It is not. Do your own research before investing in any digital asset or affiliate offers, and understand that investing in any crypto is risky. If you do, you need to be prepared to risk your entire investment. This video is for information and entertainment purposes only. All our videos are strictly personal opinions. Please make sure you do your own research and never take our opinions for financial guidance. There are multiple strategies, and not all strategies fit all people. Our videos are not financial advice.